Last year, between May and the following April, my wife and I tallied just over 1,900 pounds of food off this homestead, and a surprising chunk of that came from plants I put in the ground one time and never replanted. That is the quiet power of perennials, and May is the window where you set them up for the next 20 years. I want to walk you through 15 of them, not the pretty ones, not the trendy ones. The 15 that have actually pulled their weight in my garden, ranked from solid producers up to the one Eli used to call the most honest plant on the place. Stay with me to the end, because number one is not asparagus, and most folks have never even tasted it. Let me set the table before we start. These 15 earned their spots one way: pounds on the scale. Of the 1,900-pound total my wife and I tallied off this place last year, roughly 380 pounds came off perennial plantings I put in the ground years ago and never touched again. That's a fifth of the food we ate without lifting a spade. The reason I'm talking about May is straightforward. Out here in Lancaster County, we're Zone 6B. Last frost passes around April 25th, and by the second week of May, the soil's workable but not baked. A perennial planted in that window has a full season to root before winter, and that root run is what feeds it for the next 20 years. We're going from number 15, a solid producer, straight up to number one, the plant Eli used to call the most honest one on the place. Let's get into it. Number 15, chives. I'm starting here because chives were the first perennial I ever planted back in 1996. And that same original clump still edges my herb bed today. I divide it every 4 years or so, replant the divisions, and give the rest away. Plant chives once, and you have chives forever. The leaves go into eggs, potatoes, soups, and anywhere a green onion would land. But the part most folks miss is the flowers. Those purple globes that open in May feed the early pollinators when nothing else in my garden has woken up. That alone earns a clump near the kitchen door. Chives are the solid spot to start. From a flower the bees love to a leaf you'll cut before the snow is fully gone. Number 14, French sorrel. This earns its rank because it shows up before almost anything else in the kitchen garden. Off a 6-foot row, I'm cutting handfuls of lemony green leaves by the middle of April, weeks before the asparagus even thinks about pushing a spear. Sorrel goes into spring soups, into eggs, into a quick wilted salad with a piece of bacon. The taste is sharp and clean, like lemon juice squeezed into a spinach leaf. The plant resents heat, so by July I let it sit and recover. Cut hard in spring, leave alone in summer, cut again in fall. One row feeds 2 people for years. Number 13, Egyptian walking onions. I plant the bulbils the second week of May, and that's the last time I have ever bought an onion set. The way these work is, the plant sends up a stalk. The stalk forms a cluster of little top-set bulbs in summer. The weight of those bulbs bends the stalk down to the ground, and the next generation plants itself. It walks across the bed, hence the name. I pull green stems spring through fall and pickle the top sets in late summer. I have not bought a green onion at the store since 2008. One planting, 16 years and counting. Number 12, lovage. If you've never grown it, lovage tastes like celery boiled down to its concentrate. Louder, deeper, a little bitter at the edge. A single plant in the herb bed stands 6 feet tall by July, and that one plant fills every stock pot, soup, and savory braise my wife and I cook for the year. The leaves dry well, the seeds season pork, the hollow stems make a stalk you can sip soup through if you're feeling playful. Eli used to keep a clump by his back door. He told me lovage was for folks who didn't want to bother growing celery. He was right. Number 11, horseradish. Plant horseradish where you mean it, because it does not negotiate. I pulled an 18-inch taproot out of my dedicated horseradish corner last October and ground it into enough sauce for the year, plus 3 jars to give away. The roots travel, any piece left in the ground comes back the next spring. That aggression is what makes it productive, but it is also why I keep it in its own corner of the field garden, well away from everything else. Aggressive, and unlike the patient root waiting for us at number 1, horseradish never asks permission to spread. Number 10. Good King Henry. This is an old European perennial that filled in for spinach across pre-industrial kitchen gardens. And the advantage is straightforward. It doesn't bolt when the heat comes. Spinach is finished by Memorial Day in my zone, but Good King Henry holds steady from April through October out of the same bed. The young shoots in spring eat like asparagus, the leaves cook like spinach, and the flower buds steam up like tiny broccoli. 3 crops off one plant across a 6-month window. It is slow to establish. Give it a full year before you start cutting hard, but once it is set, it just keeps going. Number 9. Sea kale. This one is a stranger to most American gardens, and Eli told me he had never seen one in plain country either. But he liked the principle the moment I showed him. The principle is simple. Cover the crown with a tall pot in early spring, block the light, and the shoots that come up are blanched, tender, and sweet, like a cross between broccoli and asparagus. I got the technique out of a 1947 seed catalog a friend's father had saved. A mature plant gives me a pound of shoots in May. The same crown returns every year. Number 8. Daubington's perennial kale. This is a non-flowering kale that propagates by cuttings rather than seed, which means once you have a plant, you can clone it forever. I took my original cutting 6 winters ago, and that same plant is still feeding my kitchen leaves every week of the year. Through snow, through hard frost, through the dead of January, it does not bolt, it does not flower, it does not die. You cut a side shoot, root it in a glass of water for 2 weeks, and you have your next plant. Nothing else in my garden hands me leaves in February. Number 7. Rhubarb, the first real producer of spring on this homestead. I have 3 crowns in a dedicated bed at the south end of the kitchen garden, and last May my wife and I pulled 23 pounds of stalks off them in 3 cuttings. That's pies, sauces, 24 jars of rhubarb strawberry, preserves, and enough left over to send a basket to Ruth next door. The leaves are toxic, so you cut the stalks and toss the leaves on the compost heap. A rhubarb crown wants rich, well-drained soil and 10 years of patience. But it is a stalk crop, and number 1 on this list is a root most folks would not even recognize. Number 6, sunchokes, what most folks call Jerusalem artichokes, though they are neither from Jerusalem nor artichokes. They're a native North American sunflower with knobby tubers underground, and they store their sugars as inulin rather than starch, which means they sit lighter in the gut than potatoes do. I pulled 64 pounds out of a 4-foot row last fall, 64 pounds off 4 feet. The catch is they spread like horseradish. Plant them where they cannot escape, ringed by a hard path or a buried edge, because any tuber left in the ground comes back. Roast them, mash them, slice them raw into a salad. One planting feeds you the rest of your life. Number 5, blueberries. 6 bushes along the south fence, a mix of low bush and high bush varieties, so the harvest staggers from late June into August. I get a steady 30 pounds a year off those 6 plants. The trick with blueberries in Lancaster County clay is the soil. They want it acidic, and our native ground sits around 6.3 pH, which is too sweet for them. I mulch the row 4 inches deep with pine needles every spring, and the needles do the work over time. No sulfur, no chemicals, no fuss. Pine needles, rain, and patience. The bushes are 20 years from done. Number 4, ever-bearing raspberries. A 12-foot row gives me 18 pounds of berries from late August through the first hard frost, exactly when the strawberries and blueberries have called it a year. The ever-bearing types let you cheat the pruning too. Most raspberries need you to figure out which canes are second-year fruiting and which are first-year, and prune accordingly. With everbearers, you mow the whole row to the ground every February with a sharp pair of loppers, and the new canes that come up in spring fruit that same fall. Simplest pruning routine I've ever run. Cut everything down. Wait, pick berries. Number 3, pawpaw. This is the largest native fruit on the North American continent, and most folks east of the Mississippi have walked past wild ones in the woods their whole lives without knowing what they were looking at. I have a single tree at the south edge of the orchard, and it gives me roughly 25 fruits in late September, each one the size of a small mango with custard-textured flesh that tastes like a banana crossed with vanilla pudding. You will not find pawpaws in a grocery store because they bruise on contact. If you want to eat one, you grow it. That is the only way. Number 2, asparagus. I planted this bed in 2008, 16 years ago, and last May we cut 38 pounds of spears off 4 feet by 20 feet of bed. The secret with asparagus is the planting trend. You dig down 8 inches, lay rotted manure across the bottom, set the crowns on top with their roots spread out, and fill back in a few inches at a time as the spears push up that first year. Do it right once, and the bed produces for 20 years. And no, this is not number 1. Eli ranked one plant above asparagus on this homestead, and that plant is what we're getting to right now. Now, what I've shared with you so far is one real piece of the puzzle, but it is still just one piece. The reason May is the window for perennials is the same reason May is the right window for half a dozen other crops out here. Soil temperature, frost dates, and what the trees are doing when you walk past them. That whole timing system is Chapter 6 of Homestead Hank's 30-day Amish garden protocol called Planting by the Signs. It lays out the soil temperature thresholds and the phenological signs Eli taught me to read across the whole season. Everything I learned from him over the years, organized into a single day-by-day plan. The book is 173 pages, $19.99 at homesteadhankbooks.com. If you are watching this on your television, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time finding it. I will be right here. Or click the link in the description if you are already on your phone. All right, let's get to number 1. Number 1, skirret. Half of you have never heard the word, and that is exactly why it earned the top spot. Skirret is an old world perennial root vegetable. The Latin is Siam cicerum, and for about 300 years, it sat in every serious kitchen garden in colonial America and pre-industrial Europe. Then, the carrot got better, the parsnip got bigger, and skirret quietly disappeared. You will not find it in a grocery store. You will not find it in most seed catalogs. A handful of heritage suppliers carry it, and that is it. Most folks alive today have genuinely never tasted one. Here is what skirret is. The plant looks ordinary enough above the ground. A 4-foot stalk with white umbel flowers. Looks a bit like a wild carrot relative, which it is. But underneath, the crown produces a cluster of slender white roots, maybe pencil thick, 8 or 10 of them in a bundle. You harvest the cluster, leave a piece of the crown, replant it, and you have skirret again next year. The flavor sits somewhere between a parsnip and a young carrot, with a sweetness honest enough that Eli's grandfather grew them so the children could dig and chew the roots raw out of the row. Eli gave me my first divisions about 18 years ago. He had them from his grandfather's garden, and that same line of plant is what I'm still pulling out of my bed today. I split the crowns and plant them in May, 12 inches apart, in a permanent spot. The second year on, you start harvesting in October. Last fall, I pulled 14 pounds out of a 6-foot row. The reason this is number 1, the reason Eli used to call it the most honest plant on the place, is what he said the first time he handed me a root across the fence post. He said, "It does not ask much, it does not complain, and it does what it said it would do." That is the criterion this whole list was built on. Pounds on the scale. No replanting, no fuss. Skirret is the plant that defines it. All right, before I let you go, a perennial bed sits in the same ground for 20 years, which means the soil under it has to be built right the first time. There is no do-over. That soil work is chapter 3 of the book, called Soil Building, the foundation Eli laid first. It walks through the sheet composting, the no-till approach, and the cover crop rotation I run under every perennial bed on this homestead. It is the same protocol Eli taught me before he passed. And it is what makes a skirret rouse still produce 18 years later. The book is at homesteadhankbooks.com. If you are on the TV, point your phone at the QR code on the screen now. Take a second to grab it. No rush. I'll wait. Or use the link in the description if your phone is already in your hand. So those are the 15 perennials I would plant in May if I were starting over tomorrow. Try even one of these this season. If you can find a skirret start or a sorrel division, begin there. If you can't, asparagus and rhubarb will treat you right. I would love to hear which one you go with down in the comments. If you want to see where this harvest ends up after the growing season, take a look at my root cellar build video. That is where every one of these plants finishes its year. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I will see you in the next one.